We're judging the world and saying what sucks. We're reviews versus the world.
Oh, we're good.
Yeah. Okay, Trash Pandas. It's time for Reviews versus the World versus Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Woo!
Um,
was so mean.
oh,
It'll
wait.
get worse. Okay.
Because he's beautiful on the inside. He's Mary Poppins, y'all. It's Brady.
Woo! Hi,
my
guys.
left. And next are David Hasselhoff, the two-time Galaxy Saver, Steven. And he was raising the roof. I know this isn't a video podcast, but Steven was raising the roof.
Hey, considering what could have happened, I'll settle for Hasselhoff.
And there are two types of beings in the universe, those who dance and those who do not. I am the latter. This is John. And we're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We'll start with what we've been into lately. Brady?
I've been into a few things as normal. There's some TV.
No.
And there's some video games.
Because there's new Fargo and a new system from Nintendo. So it's just, everything's coming up Millhouse. Or Brady.
It's like Christmas every day. But yeah, Fargo has been absolutely wonderful. So not only is Ewan McGregor outstanding playing brothers, playing two characters.
I didn't know he was doing that. That's cool.
Yeah. And he does a great job of, really separating the characters. And it's weird seeing him with actually a decent American accent, which he normally can't do very well.
Well, you're not talking about Big Fish, are you?
Yeah. But also, Mary Elizabeth Winstead is amazing in this season.
I need to watch it because it's the same setting but different times, or just different characters in the same setting.
Well, it's different. It's different times, different characters each season. It's basically its own contained story, and you will have loose things that will connect the seasons. So you have season 1, and season 1 takes place in 2007, and that's the one with Billy Bob Thornton and Martin Freeman, and Alison Tolman plays the cop who actually starts to put things together. The one competent cop in the group. And one of the things that happens in season 1 is her dad used to be a cop and now owns a diner, and her dad one time mentions something that happened in South Dakota when he saw True Evil when he was a cop. And so season 2 is actually that story. So it takes place in the 70s. And so you have the connection where, you do see Alison Tolman's character as a kid, and you see Peter Carradine is the one who plays the dad in the first one, and you see him, younger as a cop. But that one is really, really good also. And that one was a little bit far out there, which I love. You can probably guess that about me, but I love it. But season 3, I haven't seen the connection yet to either of the other seasons.
But you don't have to watch the other seasons to enjoy. It's just an added little bit of, oh, okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, and then also, did either of you guys see the movie? Fargo?
No. I
No,
know,
actually, it's on my list, but I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
I know, it's Coen Brothers, and it's...
So there's basically a part in the movie where the money that they get from everything that happens, he basically just he's trying to hide it, so he just buries it in a random place. And there's a character in season 1 of Fargo who finds that money and gets rich off of it, and that's actually a storyline. So there's even a connection to the movies, but still they're all their own separate stories, all just kind of similar aesthetics. And with
the same.
with the Minnesota niceties and
Sure.
Yeah, that was always the weird part about the first season of Fargo.
Yeah, but just having we talk a lot about how much I love Fargo, and
yes, we do,
and it's because I love that just dichotomy of that Midwest nice, and then the horrible violence. And just having that, that dark with that, oh, you betchas, really just something shines about it. Plus, it's extremely well shot. Noah Hawley is a genius, as John can attest to after watching Legion.
Oh, I still have like an episode and a half left because every time I sit down to watch it, I'm also doing other things.
And you have to pay attention.
You have to like turn off your devices. I can't sketch and watch it at the same time. I have to just sit and watch it. You know, even like having a drink is like, okay, that's as far as you can go. You know, but
so basically, imagine that sort of cinematography and flair.
Yeah.
But applied to pure white snowfields with, a crime drama.
It would make you actually want to go to Fargo.
No, just because it's horrible.
Okay. So more reasons to skip that. I've been to 43 states. I have not been to the Dakotas. There's a reason.
Well, apparently the reason is Fargo.
And let me give you an example of what's special about this season. So they have one episode where the lead cop, it's her father-in-law is killed in everything that happens, and it's kind of an accidental thing, but she's trying to follow up leads, and so she's basically going in and digging into his past, and we know the reason that everything happened, but she doesn't know. And so she's following this lead that takes her to actually LA for an episode. And the entire time we're like, this has nothing to do with this. You're investigating this for nothing. But the stories and everything that comes out from everything that she finds out about her father-in-law is just so masterfully done. Where, he was a screenwriter who a couple of people basically took advantage of him and made him think that they were going to make this wonderful movie and basically just conning him. And it's so masterfully done. And you have in that episode, she basically has the original book that the movie was going to be based on, that her father-in-law wrote, and so it's about this robot. So it has this, stitched into little parts of the episode. It has parts of the story of this robot, and it's a cartoon with her narrating, and it's amazing. I'm not going to ruin anything about it, but
I will eventually get around to seeing it.
It feels so weird and out of place, but at the same time, it's not, and that's what I love, because Fargo it's on another level from anything else on TV.
That's what I liked about Legion, is that you don't see everything coming. Most shows, any procedural, and most comedies, you can see the jokes or the twists coming a mile away, and it's not fun to watch anymore. But then something unexpected like this, like Mad Men did that for me, where I thought I knew what would happen, and the ending was, I still want to go back and rewatch it and be like, am I getting what's going on here or not?
Right.
So, that's cool.
Well, and then the other show that I've really been into that, it took a while for it to find its stride, but Better Call Saul is... It's
People seem
on
to really like
fire this season. Have either of you guys watched Breaking Bad?
No. I saw the first episode and tapped out.
Yeah, I saw first couple, and I was like, I can't.
It's
not for everyone.
No,
I
it's
think
not.
it's safe to say.
But so Better Call Saul definitely has a lot more of a lighthearted turn to it, because it's all about Bob Odenkirk's character,
and he's great.
And it's several years before what happens. And it's just amazing, because a lot of it is about this brother, is about his relationship with his brother, who's played by Michael McKean, who Michael McKean is amazing in everything,
actor.
and this is the best I've ever seen him.
Better than Clue. That's high praise.
Yeah,
Okay.
He's absolutely on fire. There's a moment in this season that feels like it's 3 seasons worth of payoff in one moment, where you're just like, oh my gosh.
Very cool.
Where I won't spoil it. But there's a courtroom scene, and basically what Bob Odenkirk is able to do to his brother in that episode is woohoo. It's good. It's really good.
Note to self. Very cool.
Yeah. So, and the thing about Better Call Saul is you don't need to have seen Breaking Bad in order to watch it, and it's not nearly It's not nearly as intense. You don't have people trying to disintegrate bodies in bathtubs or anything like that.
That's where I checked out. I was like, okay, all right. I can handle some things, but yeah, that was just too much.
Yeah, so Better Call Saul is not nearly as bad, and I think that both of you guys would actually enjoy it because it's a lot different. And then it has a lot of the character Mike Ehrmantraut, who's played by Jonathan Banks, who you might
great.
know. Jonathan Banks, he was in a season of Community where he played basically like the, not law enforcement, but something like a forensics class teacher, and he's in his spare time is a cartoonist who draws ducks. But anyway, so it has this. He was a series favorite in Breaking Bad, and he's definitely on the top of his game here, where he's very cold and calculating, but it's also everything that he does is for his daughter-in-law and his granddaughter, and so that all of that's just great stuff. So I highly recommend both of those shows. And like I said, you guys would be able to handle Better Call Saul. And it definitely has a lot more comedic elements because it's Bob Odenkirk, who's a comedic genius.
Oh my gosh. He made How I Met Your Mother feel less like, just a standard sitcom. He was real funny on that. That's where I first was introduced to him. But
well, and then he's actually in season 1 of Fargo. Bringing that back around.
That's right. He's one of the cops, right?
Yep. And Jim Gaffigan is in season 3 of Fargo. Just by the way.
Wow, that does not fit with my mental image of the man. I'm gonna say that.
Yeah. Anyway, and then Vidya Games. Oh, and also just a quick shout out to Master of None season 2 was absolutely excellent. Which I'm not an Aziz Ansari fan. He's the one part of Parks and Rec that really bugged me, but
see, I think he's brilliant and really funny. I saw one episode of the first season. I was like, content wise, like it was really funny.
It's a little bit risque, but like they're not gonna have boobs in your face or anything.
Wait. We were. Oh, never mind.
But season 2 is great. It actually starts out in Italy, and the first episode is in black and white, and it's an homage to like classic Italian films.
Well, he puts thought into, like, he heard an interview where he wanted the look of one of his specials to, like, he didn't want it to just be like a standard comedy special, and so you took the time to pick out a suit, have it like the stage lit a certain way or whatever. Like, it was just, I don't know, it was really cool, and I think he was really funny.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed him on Parks and Rec. Yeah, as a person, like, if you met him in real life, you'd be like, oh, get out of my face. But oh my gosh, all the scenes with him and John Ralphio just cracked me up.
And it just goes to when you let these very intelligent comedians actually make the shows that they want, then you have stuff like Master of None or Atlanta or Louie, and they're all three of those shows are excellent, and I'd put them all on the same tier, which is just above pretty much every other comedy. It's outstanding stuff. But anyway, so games.
There's
been a lot of games. John and I were actually just doing some Ultra Street Fighter 2, the final challengers.
It's like a time machine. I just went back to junior high school playing it. It was cool. The good parts of junior high school,
which is on the Switch, and it's a lot of fun. It's definitely overpriced, and I'm a little bit depressed that I did pay $40 for it. But the online is a lot of fun, and they do have some interesting additions. I would honestly wait for a price drop on that. Other Switch stuff that I've been playing, because I still have barely turned on my PS4 or my Xbox One since I've gotten this, is I've been playing a lot of a game called Thumper.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that's the rabbit from Bambi. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yes, okay. It's a game all about him.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's about him getting revenge on the hunter for killing Bambi's mom.
Dang right. That's fantastic.
No, so
Thumper. Oh, he's the bunny from Monty Python. He can leap about. Look at the bones.
So Thumper is actually this. It's this rhythm game, this rhythm music game, where you're this beetle going along this track, and the visuals. like I posted a picture on Facebook.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Where it's like
Frequency or Guitar Hero, right? Like that kind of game.
kind of, except for the music is really weird and crazy.
Yeah.
Maybe on break I'll show you guys a quick level to give you an example of what it is. But visually, the best way that I can describe it is it's like the cover to an '80s Journey album of just like weird colors, all coming at you in neons, and yeah, it's really weird, but it's addictive. It's hard. It is one of the hardest games I've ever played, but I can't stop playing it. It's absolutely amazing on the Switch. I hear that it's also great on PlayStation VR, so if you have PlayStation VR, then you can try it there. It's also on PS4 just by itself, but I recommend it on Switch before I'd recommend it on PS4 unless you have VR.
Cool.
And yeah, so that's about it for me.
Cool. Steven.
So, weird thing, I have actually not been into that much nerdy stuff this month. The most eventful occurrence in my life was my basement flooded. So, yeah.
I was going to say, you've been doing grown-up stuff. And
I've been doing grown-up stuff.
Grown-up stuff is no fun.
In order to fully resolve the issue, it's going to cost me $9,000.
Oh my gosh.
It's serious?
In the short run, there was a quick fix for $1,000, but it's not a lifetime guarantee. I've got to do something with the sewer pipes leading from my house to the street, and that's not covered by homeowners insurance. So yeah. So, but it's fine. It's something that I can save up for. It just means that I can't buy any new comics or anything like that for a little while.
No.
The good news is I have been less than wise with my money, so I've been catching up on all of the comics that I've bought over the last couple of months / years that I haven't been able to read yet.
Right.
Going back to our conversation about newspaper comics from a couple of months ago, I've rediscovered Bloom County.
Yeah, I saw your post about that.
Yeah, it's really funny to see Bloom County comics from 30 years ago and have them feel almost as relevant today. I had forgotten Bloom County ran for 10 years, and when I was a kid, we had collections of all of the Bloom County books. So we had all of the adventures of Opus the Penguin and Bill the Cat, and I didn't ever really realize as a kid, because I didn't have the language to describe it, just how liberal those books are.
Oh, yeah.
And so, yeah, during the Reagan and the Bush administrations, Burke breathed, had a lot to say. Mm-hmm. And then you get to the part at the very end of the series, because the series only lasted 10 years, and I had completely forgotten that this story arc happened. Donald Trump gets hit by an anchor, and his brain gets put into the body of a dead cat. And so Donald Trump is a recurring character in Bloom County for like the last 6 months or so. I had completely forgotten about that. And reading that last night kind of made me giggle. I'm going to leave the politics out of it. It's just, in some ways, it feels just as pertinent now as it ever did.
If only he had been hit and his brain put into a cat.
Oh, dear.
Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, dear. But beyond that, I have been listening to a lot of new music at work. And I wish Aldo was here, because I wanted to see if he had ever heard of this guy. I've discovered a new rapper that I really like. Like, I do listen to rap music every now and again, but, you know, like an interested white guy. It's like I would go to a rap concert, but I would be the guy sitting in the back sipping tea from a little teacup with my pinky out.
Not out of a 40. Nothing out of a 40.
Yeah, I'm not... I'm not your typical concert goer, let me say. But I do like music, and I love clever lyrics and wordplay. And the best clever lyrics and the best wordplay tends to come from the world of hip-hop. And so I've been listening to a lot of Tech Nine, which brings my favorite rapper count to 2, Ludacris and Tech Nine. Tech Nine's an interesting guy. He has an exceptional flow. He's rapid fire, but he's also got this really strong sort of political conscience. His work is really personal. The song of his that I first heard is a song called Aw Yeah. But the thing is, Aw Yeah is directed at God. He's like, Aw Yeah, that's the way it's gonna be? Well, let me tell you why I have a problem with this. It's a man who is, from everything I've read, he is a believer. I don't know that I would say necessarily that he's religious, but he certainly does believe in God, and a lot of that has to do with the upbringing that he got from his mother. And his mother died in 2015 at the same time that there were a lot of horrible things going on. And this song is about him questioning all of the horrible things that happen in the world, and he's angry. It's a very legitimate emotion. He raps a lot about mental illness. He has a song called Iba, which is short for Evil Brain Angel Heart, that's apparently supposed to be like his take on bipolar disorder. He has a song called PTSD, which is exceptional, and the music video is pretty interesting, but it's also got some very overt product placement by Monster Energy drinks, which I have trouble getting around. My favorite song of his, though, is probably one called What If It Was Me, which is about police brutality and discrimination against blacks. In particular, the music video shows Tech9 as a younger artist, which is funny because he is in his 40s, I believe, and he's dressed like a much younger man in this video. It's a little bit of a weird look on him. But the rap is about the story of someone getting shot, and he realizes, Tech9 does, that he fit the profile of the person who was shot because he was like a black guy who stood on the corner and sold CDs and stuff. But the video also takes this one step further, and it shows the story not just from the perspective of the man who got shot, but of the police officer, who, if he had hesitated, might have gotten shot himself. So I think the video in particular does a pretty good job of painting this picture that the question of police violence against black suspects is a tragedy. And it is something that we need to speak to, but it's more complicated than just cops always shoot the black guy, because they have their own fears and their own concerns. And frequently, the suspects that they are sent to apprehend, black, white, or otherwise, are threats.
Yeah.
And if they do hesitate, they could wind up dead.
It's interesting that he, usually you'd feel that justifiably so that it would be a one-sided portrayal.
And it frequently
in a rap song.
It frequently is. And again, I think that anger comes from somewhere legitimate.
Yeah.
And I don't want to like naysay the frustration and honestly the fear that people who don't look like me might experience.
Yeah.
Guys, we're so privileged being anyway. But it was just, it's a fascinating song. The music video, like I say, is great, and the best part of the song is actually not Tech9. He collaborates. A frequent collaborator of his is a man named I think Chris Calico, who does rap, but he's frequently brought on as a singer for Tech9's songs. And his music, his verse, he sings basically the last half of the song, and it's exceptional. The man's got a really good voice, and there's some good backup singers. It's a very, very powerful piece. Tech9 does do some lighter party club hip hop stuff. I am not into that as much as I am into the other stuff. And I'm not gonna like sit here and pretend to be some great scholar of rap music, because like I say, there are like two artists that I really love, and a lot of the rest I can just kind of take or leave. And Drake is terrible. But I have really, I've been listening to these Tech9 songs for about 2 weeks now at work, and I've been loving them. It's been good stuff.
Cool. I'm trying to think of what is new since the last podcast. Just more Cubs baseball and more new dad stuff. Baby's walking and talking. She has started standing on her head, which nice. She just will look at us and laugh, looking through her legs upside down, which is hilarious. We don't know where it came from. Trying to introduce, Disney music in her life, and she dances to Moana. Very happy about that.
Nice. Let the propaganda begin.
That's right.
Hey, it works.
John Lasseter's in charge now. I'm okay with it.
If you notice, my 5-year-old has pretty similar interests to me, and I think that I have cultivated that from a young age.
I'm just gonna say, we could watch Doc McStuffins, or we can watch Daddy's old Bugs Bunny cartoon DVDs and have cake. and I'll let her choose, what she wants, because I think choice is important. But obviously, there's a right choice and there's a wrong choice. But and the Cubs are at the top of their division right now, but we'll see if that lasts after they play the Dodgers again, because they lost last night. For anyone who cares, I am trying to follow them closer. Yes.
Cricket sounds. sounds.
No, I feel like I need to find more shows to binge, because I keep coming back to I'm probably 6 months away from watching The West Wing all over again. And right now I'm doing a Frasier run, because or a Futurama, kind of just whatever mood I'm in, switch back and forth.
Do Fargo.
Yeah.
First two
it's on
two
Hulu?
seasons are on Hulu.
Okay. I have
We could watch Doc McStuffins, or we could watch Fargo, and Daddy could put you in the crib with a blindfold.
Yeah.
Because you were not watching that.
Daddy will wait till you're napping, and I'll turn the sound down real low. No, I also, if I have a stressful day while I'm working, I'll turn on Bob Ross. Which I just dismissed. I'm like, oh, it's just, dumb landscapes. Watching him paint those landscapes is so relaxing. And it's so positive and uplifting, like, hello, my friends, we're going to put in some happy trees. And it's wonderful. So I dismissed it previously, but it's entertaining to watch in a very, you've had a rough day, people are frustrating you. Just watch him, take a palette knife and boom, mountain range, just like that. It's fantastic. I'm trying to figure out. I saw a meme online where somebody was not really paying attention in a lecture. They had one screen open playing Bob Ross and another screen with MS Paint, and they were painting along with Bob Ross. I don't think you can get the same wet-on-wet oil painting that you can, digitally, but I think there's a way to do it, and I'm going to find that out. Anyhow, so yeah, let's talk about Guardians 2. And there's few of us, but we have lots of opinions and lots of favorite things, and I think that'll be great. I wanted to start by talking about sequels and what makes a good sequel, and does Guardians 2 measure up? Simply, yes. Yes, it does.
I would say so.
Brady, what do you think it's a... Brady has told us that he has an unpopular...
I think that it's a good movie.
He says very diplomatically. Uh-huh.
No, we'll get into it a little bit.
So what do you feel makes a good sequel in general?
In general, I feel like a good sequel takes what was great about the first movie and then builds on it. It doesn't hit the same beats, but it hits similar beats while escalating as necessary, or in some cases even bringing things down and making it more personal. Depending on the sequel.
That's almost literally what I have here. Just expanding the world of the first movie, goes deeper into the characters, raises the stakes, doesn't rehash the success of the first. If you look at the Austin Powers sequels, because the first one was so funny and so great, and just it came out of nowhere, and then the other ones, it's literally they just do the same jokes over in a different setting, and it's really annoying and makes me angry because they had such potential, and it just, yeah. Not saying there aren't good moments in them. Dr. Evil will always make me laugh, but I just, it makes me upset. But I think this one is successful in that way, where it, kept the same tone while not just doing the same thing over again. Steven, what do you think?
I agree with all of this. I feel like a really, truly successful sequel functions on its own. I think this in particular comes from my experience with, superhero comics being kind of my preferred storytelling medium. The story of a superhero comic never ends, because if it did, we'd have no more Batman stories, and clearly that is not an option.
Nope.
So, the story has to function on its own, but it has to be rewarding to people who have seen the original, and it can't feel, like we said, like a retread. It does need to feel like it's continuing from that, that it's expanding the story, that the overall story of these characters is richer for having both parts, while still being rewarding to new viewers or readers or whatever, and revisiting and expanding upon the themes and the character arcs of the original. Like, it's a very difficult balance to walk, which is part of the reason that superhero comics reboot so often.
Yeah.
And I do not think it would be that surprising for the Marvel Cinematic Universe to reboot before too much longer.
Which I think once everyone's contract is up, they might just do that, and that upsets me. They should do it like Bond, recast, but don't tell us. If I see Thomas and Martha Wayne on screen one more time in my life, I swear, and I know I will, but it's gonna make
You
me
are
just,
going to.
oh, we get it, like we know it. We don't you don't have to waste time on it.
Blah, blah, vengeance, blah, blah, the night. We know, we know, we know.
Well, I can hear that line over and over again. Seeing the pearls drop, it's been done. It's been done well in the comics. We get it. We don't need to know about Krypton.
You know what movie didn't have that? The Lego Batman movie, and it was outstanding.
Yeah. I would put that against other Batman movies as a really good Batman movie. He learned that he needed to not be a loner. He made funny jokes. You can now talk to Siri and call it Pooter, and it'll know what you're talking about. Hey, Pooter. Cracks me up. I think, let's just, before we go any further, we're going to spoil Guardians 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this is going to be totally spoiler filled.
And so if you haven't seen it, then pause, go watch the movie, come back. No one ever does that, but there it is. So spoiler warning, we're going to give away the ending. I think every character gets a little, more complex in this one.
Yes, yes, and that's one of the things that I've liked the most about Guardians 2 is that certain characters who were neglected in the first movie got a little bit more development.
Gamora and Nebula come to mind for me.
Especially Nebula. Gamora,
Yeah.
I still feel is... Personally, I think Gamora is the weak link in the cast.
Yeah.
Kind of in both movies, and that's
agree.
a shame.
I think she has to be kind of... It's like she's the straight, the normal one in comparison to the rest.
She is.
That's not really her character in the comics.
And that, frankly, the comic... not the comics. Frankly, I would say the movie doesn't need a straight man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they feel like they have to have one. And you're right, Gamora is absolutely thrust into that role because she gets very few comedic moments in either film.
It's mostly in contrast. Like, she's the serious one in contrast to whatever crazy thing is happening around her.
She's Scar rolling his eyes and saying, I'm surrounded by idiots.
Yes. She does get the really cool big gun moment, though.
That is so good! Yes, that part's
But
great.
your thing is the sword thing.
Yeah. That's fine. I thought that my thing was guns and your thing was swords. Yeah. But seeing her and Nebula was rewarding.
Very.
I wanted to see more of Nebula in the first movie and was really excited with her screen time and her little moment with Sean Gunn. I'm going to go and I'm going to fight them and then I'm going to use whatever. And she goes off and he's like, oh, okay. Well, I thought you were just going to get, like,
a pretty hat
or something, make everyone go, oh, that's nice. Sean Gunn
in this
almost
film.
steals the show. Definitely steals some scenes, but, like,
I have some very
really
complimentary
happy about
things to say about Sean Gunn, but I'm going to save them for now.
Okay.
Um,
But, yeah, I think, we learned more about Star-Lord, which I wanted more of him in the movie. As weird as that is, like, that it's all about him and all about his dad and everything.
I think that's one of my biggest disappointments is that he didn't get a chance to really shine. He didn't have all of the great wit and character.
He's going to build an 80-foot statue of Heather Locklear and Pac-Man. I mean, guys, he gets some pretty good moments.
Because it's like a Batman movie. It's all about him, but sometimes, like The Dark Knight, Batman doesn't really get a chance to shine very much. Mm-hmm. Like, there's not a lot of Batman in your Batman movie. This is the same thing with Star-Lord, which I still love the movie, and this is a nitpick, that like, I wish we could have had more of him. But then, Rocket, we learn more about him, and him and Yondu bonding over their similar,
pretty great stuff.
That was one of my favorite scenes.
I'm gonna say this right now, though. The movie's not called Star-Lord and the Guardians of the Galaxy.
No.
We're talking about Chris Pratt like he's the main character, and certainly he's the emotional core.
In the lead.
And, he is the lead, but he is not the only character that needs to be focused on.
Right.
And we just got through praising how much this film developed most of the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
If we'd had more of Star-Lord hamming it up, which isn't a bad thing, wouldn't have been a bad thing, it would have detracted from the time that we had for Rocket or
Baby Groot.
for Drax or for Baby Groot, who was barely in the film, considering how much he could have been in the film.
Yeah, they could have really gone over the top.
I
Which I'm
am
glad
so
they didn't, 'cause
glad
that
they
was,
didn't.
That was a perfect, because it was like a strong ingredient in a dish, and you want it there, but you can't have it overpower the rest. But oh my gosh,
Him trying to retrieve
the fin.
the fin
Oh.
was one of the greatest scenes.
Oh my gosh.
He thinks
And
you want him to wear it like a hat. It's good. He doesn't like hats.
you think someone has a weird shaped head, and then they take off their hat, and it turns out that's why you don't like hats. Oh my gosh, it killed me. And both my wife and I, we had to see it separately, just because we don't want to be the people who take a baby to the theater, especially not a violent action movie that is if it's PG-13, it's not meant for a 1-year-old. But we both said the same thing, like, Baby Groot made me want to hold my baby.
Oh yeah.
Just those eyes. And so they nailed it, and I'm glad that it wasn't overused. And I'm glad he was still Groot. He still, like, attacked stuff.
Oh,
Well, and can we just talk about that opening scene for a moment and
Yes.
how
Yes.
amazing those opening credits were?
And I wish that Aldo was here to talk about because I felt like ELO, that song in particular, was like someone listened to Sgt. Pepper by the Beatles. It was like, let's crank up the weirdness to 1,000, and that's what that beautiful Blue Sky, Mr. Blue Sky.
Mr. Blue Sky.
That's what it felt like to me, and I loved it. And like, such a brilliant, like, we're focusing on Groot dancing while this huge fight is going on behind him. We get that fight at the end of the song and everything once they like unplug the music. But I loved it.
I'm just glad that I have something new to associate that song with, other than the really, really, really weird episode of Doctor Who, Love and Monsters.
oh, jeez, that the worst episode of Doctor Who. Maybe it's real bad, guys.
It's weird. It's weird.
Which Doctor is it?
It's Doctor 10.
It's
okay.
Tenet.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Glad
not.
I haven't seen it then and had that song with it, because most of the songs were brand new to me.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like with the last
Oh.
one, you had like some songs were familiar. We'll talk about the songs later,
Yeah.
but
Like they've done a list somewhere on the internet. You can just Google it and find it, of the Guardians of the Galaxy songs in order of chart success, and a lot of the songs from Guardians 2 didn't even chart. Even The Chain by Fleetwood Mac, which is a fantastic song,
Yeah.
never charted.
really,
Yes, I don't know what the
That's
story
an
behind it
amazing
is.
song.
But
I'm pretty sure that Cat Stevens did, though.
that Cat
Really?
that Cat Stevens song did not chart.
That's surprising.
Other Cat
Very
Stevens
surprising.
songs did, and they all sound the same anyway. But that one in particular, I believe, did not chart.
that we'll talk about the music later.
We'll talk about the
Yeah,
music later.
sorry.
We have a lot to
'Cause,
say
yeah.
about the music.
But Brady, anything else about the opening scene? It just that
just how they shot that.
Yeah.
Was so perfect. How it was, the camera was really centered around Baby Groot and
Yeah.
his dancing.
Yeah.
But with everything happening in the background, and how there was a little bit of that motion blur for the background, like, I thought that that entire opening sequence was just beautiful in how it was shot.
Yeah.
And it had that personality that I'm like, okay, this is definitely Guardians.
And
like,
and like, I'm on board for this one. I'm glad that it starts off this way, because it's only going to go up from here, and this is excellent.
You guys ready for this? The beginning of the movie, I thought I was going to hate the whole thing.
That didn't work for you? The crazy opening scene?
Because everything I just said about how I want the sequel to build on and progress from the original, this focused on Baby Groot, and it rehashed a lot of the same jokes that we had in Guardians 1. Like
him
Drax
dancing
and freezing when Drax is looking at him.
Okay.
I thought from that opening sequence that this was just going to be a big retread, and I wasn't going to like it. And I was wrong, but I was nervous.
See, I always have, with movies that I really am looking forward to, I have that moment a couple of minutes before the movie starts, after or just after the credits or the trailers end and the movie starts. I'm like, what if it's terrible? What if this is The Last Airbender by M. Night Shyamalan? Like, what if and that happened to me before Episode 7. And then the first line comes up, Luke Skywalker has vanished. I was like, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna be okay. And then this opening sequence and you know, Drax being like, I have to destroy it from the inside. It's like, the skin is this, it's just this, and he's just going crazy at the guts of this thing.
Oh man,
Loved it.
It's funny to me, and again, guys, I'm going to be a bit of a wet blanket here, but I'm immediately going to redeem it, I promise. How much I expected to hate Drax, and how much I thought Drax was... Brady didn't like Drax. Brady's making faces.
Drax was my favorite part of the movie. Why must you crush my dreams?
I felt like a lot of the Drax humor was forced. Like, especially his boisterous laugh. Just... It didn't work for me.
I see that.
I see it, but it worked for me.
I am absolutely going to agree with Brady to a point here, because... Go on.
Okay, well, and, you know, the fact that Drax in the first movie was Drax the Destroyer.
Yeah.
Here, in this movie, it's Drax the Dry Quipper. He just... It just felt like... It just felt like that shouldn't have been his entire dynamic for the
Rocket
movie.
stole
And
the
like
battery. What a mystery. Why are they after us? Yeah, the dry quip, yeah.
Yeah, when he has his moment with Mantis where he's actually talking about his wife, like that was the emotional core that I wanted more of from him in the movie, and I feel like we didn't get, and I felt like it was a little bit of 13-year-old humor with a lot of what Drax said. You know, the whole, you know, do you have a penis thing? Like, it was...
my gosh.
Like, I felt like that... It felt a little bit forced for me with Drax particularly, and I think that's what's holding me back from liking this more than the first Guardians movie. Because... And I guess that we'll get into this a little bit more later, but... Like, on paper... Guardians 2 should be my favorite over the first Guardians movie, but it just can't cross that hurdle, and I feel like a big part of that is Drax for me.
I'm going to offer a counterpoint, because I said that I'm going to redeem my wet blankitude here.
Wet blanket.
Now, my opinion of the first Guardians of the Galaxy is actually kind of low compared to a lot of other people's. I like it, but I have not gone back and watched it in a long time, because to me, it's a movie that doesn't have much to offer beyond the comedy. Now, you may have heard, I believe Aldo has talked about movies with Mikey before, and I've talked about movies with Mikey on the podcast. Mike Newman has a YouTube show, and his most recent video, which just dropped yesterday, is about the original Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And it talks about how the theme of this first Guardians movie is that you take all of these people who are entertaining to watch, but they are broken, they are miserable, and they're kind of not actually good people. Mm-hmm. And they come together and they accept each other despite their flaws. Mm-hmm. To me, Drax, in the second movie, helps to sell that point. Because Drax is no longer a broken person. Drax is no longer only consumed by revenge. Drax still wants revenge. Drax still has some of that underlying anger and sadness, and that's what the Mantis scene shows us. But beyond that, Drax has become assimilated into a family. He has a group of people around him who love him despite his obnoxiousness, and they care about him, and therefore, he's been able to move past that. And again, it's still there. That's what the scene with Mantis is about. That scene actually serves two purposes. It, one, shows us what Drax is still like, and two, it sets up Mantis's betrayal of her boss, which we'll get into that a little bit more, I think, as we talk more about the plot. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the rest of it, everything Drax does, how he's a bit over the top, how his laughter is so loud and forced. Think about who Drax was in the first movie. Drax was someone who didn't understand humor. He didn't understand metaphor.
Nothing goes over my head. I would catch it.
He took everything so literally.
Yeah.
Drax is the character, despite the fact that I think in this movie he has some of the least character development, has grown the most between the movies. Mm-hmm. Because now he's trying to be a part of the team. And he's doing that by trying to engage with them with their senses of humor. Sense of humor being something that he doesn't fully understand, but he clearly enjoys doing it. He just doesn't get how it works yet. So his laughter is loud, and it is forced. but that actually builds on who the character was from the first movie. I am making myself like Guardians 1 more the more I talk about Guardians 2, which is weird. And again, I think that might be a sign of a good sequel too. But yeah, so I get it, because that was my first response to Drax as well. That his comedic moments felt very forced, especially the scene where Mantis wakes him up and he's like, "Oh, I'm imagining being with you physically." Dry heave, dry heave.
See, I respect both of your opinions. They're valid. I don't agree with them. No, I mean, I'm serious. Like, nothing.
Go on.
Okay. Nothing you said is wrong. I can see your point. There's some truth to that. Drax completely worked for me. The whole movie. There was, my friend and I saw it, and like a couple seats away was this other guy, and for whatever reason we were on the same humor bandwidth that day, and like cracking up so hard at so many moments in this movie. One of the best things I can say about a sequel is that it makes you sad when you have to go home, and to get your fix, you watch the first one and it just doesn't quite do it for you. Like,
yes.
You wish that you get to, see these other scenes again. It just cracked me up. And maybe that means I'm immature. Maybe that means that I have a 13-year-old sense of humor. Well, let me tell you something, Mr. Poopy Pants. Let's talk about favorite scenes overall. And
before we move away, I want to rebut one of your points. I actually found the humor in Guardians 2 to be less sophomoric. Is that weird? I mean,
I don't know. I'd have to I have to go watch it again. Sure.
I've seen Guardians 2 3 times now, by the way.
See, I've only seen it once, and it just hasn't been an opportunity to go see it,
I'm going to go again tonight.
Oh.
So,
wait, is it at the drive-in?
No, just on a date night.
Yeah.
Dang it.
Well, actually, it might be at the drive-in.
I need to check.
But I don't know, because you've had Alien come out and Pirates now.
And... I think I'll wait on Pirates, because the fourth one was awful. The third one was awful. The second one was passable, but was followed up by the third one, which was awful.
Yeah. So anyway,
Sorry.
I don't know. Because to me, the humor in Guardians 1 doesn't hold up to multiple viewings because it's just jokes. The humor in Guardians 2 to me feels more rooted in the characters who we are more familiar with, and Drax makes some pretty explicit frank sex talk that is funny because it makes Peter Quill awkward. But so much of that stems from, again, kind of how we've seen Drax grow as a character, because he talks lovingly about his wife and his father and his father's familial relationships.
Conception story every solstice.
It was beautiful. You Earthers have hang-ups. Oh man!
That's a good point. Which now I want to look for that, compare joke by joke or whatever.
Honestly, our conversation is kind of making me want to go back and watch the first Guardians again, because I think I might appreciate it more now that I've seen the second one.
Yeah. And hats off to James Gunn, because you can tell some movies you can tell are a job. Some movies are really just you can tell how much they love what they're doing and how much fun they're having making it.
Well, and if you guys are not following James Gunn on Facebook, you need to.
Oh yeah,
because
so entertaining.
Everything that he posts is gold, and he actually he makes Facebook a priority and talks to his fans.
Yeah.
And is there and is open. But it was wonderful during, the whole production of Guardians 2 following him, because you can see that passion in every post, where he would do little updates or, things that he was thinking about that affected where he wanted to take the movie, and it's wonderful, and he does a great job. And I think that you can really see that in a lot of the themes of the movie and in a lot of the characters. And can I say, as disappointed as I was in Drax, that Michael Rooker as Yondu
oh my gosh,
was, in my opinion, the best part of this show.
I think that's going to be a hard point to argue against. I'm not sure that I necessarily agree, because my least favorite scenes in the movie are between Yondu and Rocket. Or rather, there's one scene, it's when they're actually jumping and their faces all get distorted and stuff.
Right.
I don't like
that.
That's
almost
a little cartoonish.
It reminds me of the first
Numb tongue
swollen
and huge hands.
That was my least favorite part of that movie.
Yeah.
And so it reminded me a little bit too much of that, and I didn't like that. But everything else about Yondu and Rocket was great.
Well, from moment one, when they're out, when he's on that planet, and you see him just looking out the window, and you can see that weight on his shoulders, and from his entire development of having a mutiny.
Yeah.
And just the heartbreak that he encountered there, and then of course his relationship with Peter, and as you get that background into him. I've actually gone back and I've watched Guardians 1 again because it's my favorite MCU movie by far. And Guardians 2 makes Yondu's character make so much more sense in Guardians 1.
Yes, I can see that. Yeah. It's going to be really hard to say anything other than Yondu being like the single best part of the movie, especially from a character standpoint. But I want to give a shout out as well to Kurt Russell.
Oh, thank you, because I've been holding back.
So
I didn't realize how much I love Kurt Russell.
Let me say my piece, and then you can absolutely wax poetic. I am not the biggest Kurt Russell fan, not because I don't like any of his movies, because I haven't seen any of his movies.
Fair.
I think the only movie of his recently that I've seen, he was in Furious 7, I think, and didn't make much of an impression because that's a big ball of nothing. Nothing, but nothing.
Yeah.
Kurt Russell in this movie is amazing as Ego. And I loved just about everything about this portrayal of Ego. The only thing that I didn't like was a super nitpicky thing from me being a comic book fan. Ego is not a Celestial. Ego is not a Celestial. That's the only thing I have to say. In the comic books, Ego is a giant planet with a mustache.
Yeah. Where's the mustache, damn it? Where's the mustache?
Hey, they showed a planet with a face, eyes and nose and everything. They
made Ego the Living Planet work in a film.
And it was really good.
Because first it's like, how do you do Rocket and Groot and they did it. And then it's like, what do we do from Ego the Living Planet? Yeah, sure. And, amazing. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you are fine. So, Kurt Russell is amazing in this movie, and if Michael Rooker hadn't been in the film, I think we would be saying that Kurt Russell was the best part.
Yeah, absolutely.
The beginning scene, you see young Kurt Russell, young Ego, romancing Peter's mom, and yeah, he's Peter's dad. We kind of know that, but he's young. He looks young.
That technology is getting so freaky.
It's not technology. Kurt Russell was
really.
He was working with the director.
There was a bit of CGI.
There was a bit of CGI, but he's like, I know a makeup guy that I really like. Can we just bring him in and have him do this? And he did, and then they did a little bit of CGI to touch it up. That's why the technology looks so good, is because a lot of it's practical.
Makes sense.
When you start with a handsome base, you don't have to do a whole lot to it. It was like watching Overboard, which was like mid to late 80s for me in that first scene. It just blew me away.
It was really good. But then you get further into the film, and we start to see Ego trying to reach out to Peter and trying to be a father to Peter. And then you see it's interesting. I think if I had to come up with one defining characteristic for Ego, the Living Planet, it's impatience.
Yeah. Which
is a really interesting thing to say about a character who is a de facto immortal.
Right.
And so to have that impatience be the thing that winds up driving the conflict between him and his son, and to see the hurt and the anger on Star-Lord's face. Star-Lord doesn't get the chance to be as funny as he typically does, but Chris Pratt exercises his acting chops in this film in an amazing way.
And he actually just had lost his father too.
So
on top.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to jump because you just brought this up. I'm sorry.
No.
The reason that I like this film as much as I do is because I lost my grandfather probably about 2 weeks before I saw it the first time. Geez. And so all of this talk about fathers and death and
So
everything that
Cat
goes
Stevens just killed you.
on. And I hate Cat Stevens. I hate Cat Stevens. But oh my gosh, Fathers and Sons is playing and during the funeral sequence, which we'll talk about in more detail, and I just lose it.
I can testify to this. I was sitting next to him.
Yeah, Brady and I saw it in the theater. I was literally crying. I get misty at movies a lot. I can't tell you like just how wet my eyes got during like Inside Out. But Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had me crying, tears running down my cheeks all 3 times I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's just it's so good. But to go back to Kurt Russell, I'm going to say something that might be a little controversial.
Oh, you just...
I think Kurt Russell's Ego the Living Planet is maybe the best villain in all of the Marvel movies.
I'm going to put down my plastic knife. Okay. I think that's a good point. I think
it's close because I think that Loki just has that sort of charm about him that...
True.
Yeah.
But Ego wasn't in Thor the Dark World, so you know it's
Yeah.
6s.
There was something... I'm trying to, Doctor Strange did a bit of a better job. The villain in, Civil War actually won when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought he was good. But, like, as far as, Ego, yeah.
I think Ego might be the best.
Yeah.
He really might be.
Yeah.
It's weird to say, but yeah, I think he's the best.
Him or Loki.
I do think there's a very strong case to be made for Loki, but like I say, Loki was in Thor the Dark World, and
Yeah.
that movie is garbage, guys.
So I'm
False.
going to throw something else in, even though it's kind of offshoot MCU, and say Kingpin in season 1 of Daredevil.
I was specifically excluding
yeah.
the Marvels, the
Yeah,
Marvel Netflix
if
shows.
you throw in the Netflix shows, then it's definitely Kingpin.
And then Ego.
And Kingpin, Purple Man, and then Ego. But we could talk about that forever. So
yes.
And then kind of if you can consider Punisher, sort of.
No, Punisher's gonna get his own show. He's a protagonist.
Doesn't make him a good guy.
Doesn't matter.
So I love Kurt Russell, and every time I see a movie of Kurt Russell's, I am reminded of how much I love Kurt Russell. Maybe it's because it is because growing up we had only so many movies on tape. And one of them was Overboard. And it doesn't quite hold up. It's a little creepy watching it through modern eyes. Have you guys know Overboard? Have you seen Overboard?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know it by reputation.
Okay. It's fantastic. Gary Marshall, it's great. Goldie Hawn, it's hysterical. It's a great movie. And quoted at our house to this day. And that's my first exposure to Kurt Russell. And if you watch, like, Tombstone is great. The Computer Wore Tennis Shoes, The Strongest Man in the World, the old Disney movies. The rumor is that some of Walt Disney's last words were Kurt Russell, like, just talking about, and like, he could tell, he had that kind of vision, like, this guy's going to be a star. Not all of them are great movies throughout, but go watch Miracle sometime if you haven't seen it recently.
So good.
He's amazing in that. And if you have a fun afternoon, go watch Sky High.
I do like
so
Sky
entertaining.
High. I forgot about
so
Sky
entertaining.
High.
And like what puts it
Maybe
over
the most
top.
underrated superhero movie of all time.
Yeah, it's great. It's just goofy fun, and I love the Kids in the Hall snuck in that movie. Like, you get Dave Foley, you get this other dude that I can't remember his name, but he's from Kids in the Hall too. Anyway, it's great.
and you have Bruce Campbell.
And Bruce Campbell.
And Bruce Campbell is always welcome.
Yep.
And all the kids are great in it too. And is Mary Elizabeth Winstead in that?
I think she is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
she's the girl.
Yeah.
She's the love interest.
Which is a callback to Watch Fargo season 3.
Watch Fargo season 3. So
we are nothing if not consistent.
We'll get to like Easter eggs and stuff like that, but the favorite scene overall, I would say Yondu and Rocket taking out all the Ravagers.
Oh.
Close second would be, I was like, what is Rocket like?
Until you consider it just how much murder was there.
Oh man. Well, like,
that doesn't bother me because not only are they bad guys, but so are Rocket and Yondu.
That's true.
So, like, when, all the Ravagers are surrounding the ship, I'm like, oh, crap, it's just Baby Groot and Nebula and Rocket. I was like, wait a minute, Rocket's there. And then you see him in the trees just hooking up stuff, and it's like, oh, jeez.
Oh, and seeing the Rocket actually, like, jumping through the trees, it's like, yeah he's a raccoon, man.
Yeah.
Come on.
And he takes
not
out
only that,
so many guys.
I love seeing Rocket playing with so many toys.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of his whole deal, is he's a gadget guy.
Yeah.
And just how much fun he has with those gadgets and how crazy prepared he is.
Uh-huh.
Rocket Raccoon might be Marvel's equivalent of Batman. I mean, where
I thought
does
that
he
was
get all those
I
wonderful
thought it was
toys?
Moon Knight.
No, because nobody cares about Moon Knight and everybody loves Batman.
I'd have to put it in a case for Iron Man.
Nope.
Nope.
Because outside of Robert Downey Jr., nobody likes Iron Man.
And outside of his suit, he's just a dude.
Outside
of his suit,
that's the
Bruce
whole point
Wayne
of
is
Iron
still...
Man 3.
Okay.
But anyway,
I liked Iron Man 3.
I love
actually.
Iron Man 3.
It gets better on repeat viewings.
Yep.
It's my
So
top,
Rocket-
I'd say that Iron Man 3 is my top 10 MCUs.
there are only like 11.
Yeah, because you're
Shut up.
throwing Thor 2 under the bus. I liked Thor 2. I get that it's not great, but parts of it are great. Shut up. Come a Little Bit Closer is my favorite song on the soundtrack. As good as The Chain is, as good as surprisingly Lakeshore Drive, and talking about tripping on LSD. Apparently LSD, Lakeshore Drive, that was it's not really meant to be about drugs, but
Yep.
anyhow,
Kind of Lucy in the Sky with the Diamonds.
yeah, there you go. That whole scene when, it's a thing that they did in the first movie, but it's like taken to the nth degree, you know, and just so cool in time with the music. And then Rocket gets, a little bit of action going on, and Groot too. And Groot gets revenge because they broke my heart when they were dumping booze on him and like making him dance and all this stuff. Just terrible.
Oh, just having
mascot,
just having his scream that going after the guy. And,
Well, the thing about that scene that I think makes it work beyond just being, oh, look how rad Yondu and Rocket are, is viewed from a certain perspective, it's a character building moment for Rocket.
Right.
Because Rocket finds in Yondu, like, I think that scene, more than the conversation they have later, sells Yondu and Rocket as kindred spirits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because they are brothers in violence.
Uh-huh.
And, I mean, Rocket, we talk about this. These guys are not good people. They are, in a lot of ways, very broken people. Rocket probably more than everyone else.
Yeah,
and
literally, and
yeah, literally. And Rocket has one of the strongest character arcs in this movie because of how he learns to find common ground with other people and let other people be close to him and care about him and actually show. The perfect Rocket moment is when he shoots Gamora in the back because he doesn't want her to die.
Yeah.
Outside of context, that probably makes very little sense. In context, it's heartwarming.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad and it's heartwarming, and I'm getting a little gushy just kind of talking about it.
But that whole, Yondu, like, Rocket takes out a ton of Ravagers. But Yondu's the only one who can stop him, and that's when he throws down his gun, hands in the air, like he's like, all right, you got me, because you can't dodge that arrow. And then Nebula shoots him in the head, and that's the only way to get around him. But then them teaming up and Baby Groot going to fetch the fin, that was all fantastic. And then such a lighthearted little song, like, in a little cafe on the other side. I've been singing it, playing it nonstop.
It's not that lighthearted of a song, though, because it's about a bar fight.
Yeah, okay, well, but it's... Come a little bit. It's just a girl on the rough side who's taking it, trying to make things work. Anyway, but it was just hysterical to me. That was my favorite scene, probably.
Well, plus you have all of the Taserface stuff in there.
I was going to talk about Taserface later, but that just killed me when he's contacting the
Sovereign.
The Sovereign, and then he's like, remember the name Taserface, and she just loses it. Just prim and proper Aisha. Oh, crap. He's like, really? You just look at yourself in the face. You know what a good name is? Taserface. Like Rocket just like going seconds from death, going out teasing the guy who's going to kill him. That killed me.
Yeah. My favorite scene in the movie, having just kind of talked about it a little bit, is actually the funeral scene.
Yeah.
Which somehow felt like it was both going on too long and not long enough. Like, if, again, I fully acknowledge, I'm going to call it a bias, the fact that I had recently lost my grandfather speaks a lot to why this scene spoke to me the way that it did. And if I maybe hadn't been going through that, I would have thought the funeral was too long. But I was, and I didn't, so I think it's great. So, so much about that is just so good. How many little character things there are in there. Peter kind of shows himself as being the most together and composed of the Guardians by the way that he finally learns to accept the family that he has, because I don't think he'd really accepted it before. And he certainly wasn't able to put it into words the way that Drax was able to a little bit earlier on, that the Guardians now are a family. But he learns to accept his father. And the speech is such a Peter Quill speech because he talks about David Hasselhoff and how he wanted David Hasselhoff to be his dad, but Yondu is just as cool as David Hasselhoff, so maybe Yondu was actually his dad. That's the spoiler, guys. We kind of buried the lead there. Yondu died, saving Peter Quill's life at the end of the fight with Ego. And then we get other character moments with Kraglin, played by Sean Gunn.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and Kraglin and...
How he went along with the mutiny and then realized his mistake. Yeah. And
Kraglin has a surprising little story arc, and I love Kraglin scenes, especially in the funeral, where he gives Peter a present from his, erstwhile dad, Yondu, and it's a Zune. Which, again...
It's an upgrade from a Walkman,
It's funny, and it's touching, so it's all great. And then Peter gives Kraglin, Yondu's arrow, and then the Ravagers actually show up to the funeral, because Yondu had been outcast from the Ravagers, and they show up, and they all have this very solemn moment where they're honoring their fallen friend, even though he'd been estranged.
With a fireworks show.
With the fireworks show.
Fantastic.
So, my grandfather was a combat veteran. Not a combat veteran, excuse me. He was a veteran. He wasn't actually in combat, but he was in the Merchant Marine in World War II. Surprising fact, the Merchant Marine actually lost a lot of lives during World War II because they were often the targets of German U-boats. Which is why he's considered to be a quote-unquote veteran. That's apparently a relatively new ruling. But he was also in the Korean War as a diesel mechanic. So my grandfather had a military funeral. And I'm kind of a little liberal. I'm kind of anti-military, have been. I've never had more respect for the military than I did when I saw the respect that they showed my grandfather. And to see a funeral with that level of pageantry, admittedly a little bit more grandiose than what the military funeral my grandfather had, but
no space fireworks in this one.
No space fireworks at my grandfather's funeral. But to have that level of pageantry and to have that respect from former comrades in arms really spoke to me. And then you've got the Cat Stevens song about fathers and sons that completely...
The only song that would have been more like, if it was like the Cats in the Cradle.
I'm glad they didn't use Cats in the Cradle.
Yeah, because that would have been like,
Because they picked a Cat Stevens song that you haven't likely heard.
Yeah.
And therefore, you listen to it in a way that you wouldn't have with Cats in the Cradle. Cats in the Cradle would have been a bad choice.
Because that would have been just like, this is a fathers and son moment. Of course, here comes this song that you know is coming. Yeah.
And so instead, they used the song called Fathers and Sons, which is somehow less over the top. And then, there's one moment that gets me during the funeral sequence more than any other moment, more than Gamora going up to Star-Lord and saying it's an unspoken thing, more than Rocket being surprised that all of Yondu's friends came despite the fact that he stole batteries he didn't need. The moment that got me to cry the third time, I'm like, I'm not going to cry, I've seen this 2 other times, I'm not going to cry, is when I keep doing that, when Kraglin looks out the window, sees all of the ships arriving and shooting off the fireworks, and he just starts cheering and bawling and slapping his chest in salute. Thinking about it now, I'm getting goosebumps. It's like Sean Gunn is so good in that moment because he's such this like dirty, kind of slimy little guy that we haven't really had a lot of respect for in the 2 films until like the latter half of this one. And he's just so happy and so sad at the same time. And you guys can see I'm actually like misting up again talking about this. I love the funeral scene, and yes, give me that napkin, please. I need to dry my eyes. When I say that Guardians 1 doesn't have a lot of rewatch value, I say it because I never saw the emotional core of the movie the way that, say, Mikey Newman did in his video that I talked about earlier. The emotional core to Guardians 2 is very on the surface. Maybe that makes it a less subtle movie, and maybe that makes it a dumber movie in its own way. I don't care. I love it, and I will watch that movie over and over again because of the funeral scene. That's so good, guys.
So it's interesting, in the first Guardians movie, like James Gunn, you can tell he's like, there are a few people that I want to have in this movie. One is my brother, Sean, and of course, one of my best friends, Michael Rooker. And so, but in the first movie, both of those characters, well, I mean, especially Kraglin, were very just surface.
Yeah.
But even Yondu, like, you don't really understand what's going on with the arrow thing, but whatever. You don't really have that connection with him. And then in the second movie, he really just blew both of those characters out.
Just in Yondu is they're at a robot whorehouse. I don't know how else to describe it.
That's what it is.
And he's just like putting on his belt, just staring out the window, looking sad, and like without saying anything, he just delivers like, what's going on with his character. And then he talks to Sylvester Stallone, which surprise, Sylvester Stallone's in this movie. Everything else going on.
There's so many good things and little surprising things that we have not talked about yet. Miley Cyrus is in this movie, guys.
Yeah. Just as a voice though.
That's probably for the best.
But
Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. And Ving Rhames.
Yeah.
And
Michael Rosenbaum.
Michael Rosenbaum, yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was him because he's completely unrecognizable.
Yeah.
But anyway,
But
I know
your
that
favorite
we're going to get to that later. My favorite scene is the one that you took.
It's a good scene, guys.
So cool.
It's a good scene, guys.
It is. It's the best action scene, especially like as they're walking, and then like you just see bodies flying
and the overhead
in slow
shot,
motion,
and you just see like they're walking, and then it's like watching sped up traffic where it's just lines. You just see this red line all around them, and they're just doing a cool guy walk down a like a skywalk kind of thing, and yeah.
Oh, it's so good, and it's so well shot. And then just another call out to another scene that we've already talked about, the opening credits.
Oh man.
Yeah. Yeah. On subsequent rewatches, knowing what came later in the movie and knowing that this opening sequence wasn't going to be an encapsulation of everything that was coming, the opening sequence plays a lot better.
Yeah.
I do like it. It is pretty fun to have the whole one-shot thing.
You see it as like a link to the past one to kind of like
Exactly
meet up with the last one and then build on it. We've been sitting here, and I realize that the second one will always be superior to me because it doesn't have Glenn Close in it. And as great of an actress as she is, she
was not
phoned
she
it
was
in.
getting a paycheck.
She was getting a paycheck. She's like, my hairdo's going to do all the acting, right? Crazy outfit, and that's it. Okay, now I'm in a Marvel movie.
It didn't have John C. Reilly in it either. He was surprisingly good in the first one.
John C. Reilly was great, and Peter Serafinowicz.
Yeah. Oh well, he's dead. But
no,
John C. Reilly, he died in the first movie.
Oh, this character died.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
I thought you were talking about that.
No. We would have opened the show with that, with like 10 seconds of silence or something.
We need the rest of his tick show.
Yeah. Favorite song? I already said "Come a Little Bit Closer."
I think because of the meaning that it has in the story and its use, Brandy.
Oh man, when you hear it the first time, if you like,
when you hear the first time in that very opening sequence with that happens in the
Ego
80s,
Meredith, yeah,
like, and you see them just driving and laughing, and then you realize, then you get the callback later on, and as Ego talks about it, and you realize what was going through his head at that time.
Yeah. Well, like, best case scenario, it's like, oh, so his whole life he's like a sailor, and like, he loves her, but he also can't leave the sea behind, And then you're like, oh no, he's a bad guy. Like, because like the whole time I was like, hey, Ego, Kurt Russell. Oh no, he's gonna, because like I didn't watch any trailers, and I didn't know going in like, well, who the bad guy was. Maybe I was like, okay, maybe that's
the trailers didn't really show.
I know, which is good because But then, like, the more Ego was on screen, the more I was like, oh no, something bad is gonna. He did something bad. Like I was like, what's gonna But yeah, sorry. So you like Brandy, which it's a great song, but like a little chilling when you think about it.
In the context of the movie, especially.
In the context of the movie. The movie is what made me like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite song is, in the way it's used in the movie, is actually "The Chain" by Fleetwood Mac. And to be honest,
what point does that come up? Is that when they're splitting up?
So here's why I like this so much.
Okay.
The Chain, I think, this is my opinion, and it's a weird opinion to hold, especially as like the more I read about this movie, the more I see that nobody's talking about how the chain is used in the movie. Rob Bricken on IO9 has a whole article where he talks about the best, like, which movie has the better soundtrack between Guardians 1 and Guardians 2. And he says Guardians 2, and he brings up all of these other songs that we've already talked about. And he doesn't bring up the chain. So the chain is used twice in the movie.
Okay.
The first time is when the party splits, when Rocket and Groot and Nebula, stay behind and are patching up the ship, and then everybody else takes off for Ego's planet. And they play the song "Break the Chain."
So they play it again later.
They play it again later.
Oh, that's right.
So I want to talk about this first a little bit. "Break
yeah.
the Chain" is a song by Fleetwood Mac, which is very famously a band of married couples that kind of like hated each other and divorced and were fighting a lot at the time that they were writing The Chain. So The Chain as a song is all about this weird sort of dichotomy of a really strong familial relationship and a really weak one. Because a lot of people took it as a sign of the band's resilience. Because, the line goes, if you don't love me now, you will never love me again. But I still hear you say that you'll never break the chain. Mm-hmm. And so the chain is never going to break. Mm-hmm. Like, despite all the fights that we're having, it's never going to break. But then you could put the emphasis on the first part of that. If you don't love me now, this is never going to work, and you're just in denial.
Yeah.
And so this happens, like, they play the song first at the low point for the Guardians, where Rocket and Quill have been fighting so much, and it's gotten to the point where Rocket, this is Rocket's story arc. Rocket is in danger of completely destroying this relationship. And there's a decent chance that with Peter going off to meet his dad and with Rocket staying behind, that they may never actually get back together.
Right.
And so there's this risk that the Guardians family is going to be broken apart. But then they play it again during the fight with Ego. And it's such a brilliant moment.
With one of those like team shots where they show everybody.
No, it's Peter's like crouching down on the ground because Ego's kind of submitted him, like he's beating him down. But then the rocks around him start rumbling because Peter's learning to tap into the power of Ego's planet thanks to Yondu's pep talk.
Yeah.
And he just looks up at Ego and says, "You shouldn't have killed my mom and crushed my Walkman." And he just flies at him and smacks him in the face. Yeah. And right then they start playing The Chain again. Oh. And now it's a song. It's a song about how the Guardians family is so strong.
Yeah.
But the relationship between Peter and his actual genetic biological father is getting sundered. It is so good.
That's
and again,
true.
I'm getting goosebumps.
Again. I need to watch the movie.
I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. So I gotta say this real fast because recently, I don't remember if I've talked about this on the podcast or not. I also saw Suicide Squad, which does the same thing Guardians does, or tries to, in using a lot of licensed music.
Yeah.
And ever since I saw
try to
Guardians
create
2,
moments.
Now,
ever since I saw Guardians 2 the first time, I've been wondering what it is that Guardians of the Galaxy does with these licensed songs that makes them work so well that Suicide Squad just couldn't get. Because Suicide Squad arguably used better songs. I mean, like I said, it's arguable, but they did use Bohemian Rhapsody, which has a strong claim on greatest of all time.
And I haven't seen the movie. I've seen that trailer. The Bohemian Rhapsody trailer sets unreal expectations for any film to follow because it's a fantastic trailer, and the music with it is so cool. Go on.
Anyway, they use the song in the movie in a terrible place. It just doesn't work.
Well, the thing with Suicide Squad is that it's like there was no artistry to when and how the soundtrack was used.
Oh yeah. There's no moment.
It didn't make sense. It wasn't coherent for the feeling of the scenes that they were in, and
I think there's no moment that captures that better than the suiting up scene when all of the squad's tools are returned to them and they start getting everything out and putting it onto the tune of Eminem's "Without Me." And like it starts with "Guess who's back again," and so it feels like it should work for these characters, but it doesn't. It does not.
And then you take that and you compare it to Guardians 1, and as they're getting ready to Cherry Bomb, and how that was just perfect.
The song that really gets me from Guardians 1 is actually the Uga Chaka song, "Hooked on a Feeling," because it and so much of this is context, because that was the song that they were using in the trailer to get you hyped for this movie. But it's played in the movie. Like, the scene where you hear "Hooked on a Feeling" in the movie is
They're going to
the
prison.
It's the first really low point, and so it sets up this really interesting contrast that somehow works.
I think that like the first movie, the songs were used more like punctuation, like to kind of, and they're used that way in the second movie. But like when listening to them again, there's a lot of songs that like I think the second one does a better job of conveying the tone of the movie, like the I need to bring up the soundtrack to look at all the titles to see what I'm talking about. Shemalet, what's the shoot?
Wham Bam Shamalama.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
Such
yeah.
an odd song, but
Such an
but
odd
like,
song.
but really tonally is fantastic. And Lakeshore Drive, it's all lighthearted, and you can like I forget when it comes up in the movie, but
That's I think when they're first leaving Sovereign.
Okay.
If I remember correctly.
Okay. Because that one, like, I always think that it belongs, like, in a flashback to the, like, when Quill and not Quill, but, well, Meredith Quill and Ego are getting together. But Brandy, Wham Bam, Shang-a-Lang, My Sweet Lord, Southern Nights.
Oh my gosh, My Sweet
Lakeshore
Lord is
Drive.
such a good song. It's so
so
on the nose.
weird.
It's so on the nose.
So weird,
But
yeah.
I love the way they use
Yeah.
it. When they go to actually visit God, they play
Yeah.
My Sweet Lord.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm actually going to change my favorite song. My favorite song is Guardians Inferno.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh! Well, okay, then that goes well with the next thing. Marvel Easter eggs. In that, you see the names change to I Am Groot periodically.
Yep.
Jeff Goldblum's Grandmaster from Thor, which I had to close my eyes and shut my ears because I heard Led Zeppelin being played over a trailer, and I was like, "No, this is why trailers are bad." And then I caught the famous part that everyone keeps quoting, like, "Oh, it's a friend from work," and they're doing World War Hulk and Ragnarok like all at the same time, or not World War Hulk, sorry, Planet Hulk.
Man, that trailer's amazing.
Oh yeah,
But anyway.
but yeah, Marvel Easter eggs and David Hasselhoff popping up and rapping in it. Like,
So
oh my gosh.
So here are the words. Here are the
Oh
lyrics.
jeez. And at this point,
To Guardians Inferno.
Chris leaned over and was like, "David Hasselhoff is rapping. David Hasselhoff is rapping."
Getting down and dirty with a Procreon loader. Got no people skills, but he's good with motors. That weird thing by his side. An infantilized sequoia. The two of them walk by. People say, "Oh, boya." They ask me why I'm bringing a baby into battle. That's really irresponsible and getting them rattled. I say, give me a break. Get off my back. Damn it. I didn't learn parenting. My daddy was
My
a
daddy
planet.
was a planet. Oh my gosh.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
so ridiculous. Because it's really funny when he turns into David Hasselhoff for a minute, and
It's
like
funny.
then you see Kurt Russell's look, and you're like, okay, I get it. Like this is what he's going for, and
Nobody has laughed at that in any of the viewings except for the one that Brady and I went to, which was a critics pre-screening. Let's be honest, full of nerds.
Yes.
when he turned to David Hasselhoff, nobody
Nobody's
laughed.
laughed at that. It's been so weird.
I thought I might have peed myself. I
Yeah.
was like, there were a couple of moments in this movie that hit me harder than because there's, oh man, that was just. So yeah, it's weird that they're showing because 5 after credit scenes, which were great.
Yep.
Maybe one of my favorite moments of the movie that really came out of nowhere was Stan Lee with the Watchers, which talk about some deep Marvel lore there. And the fan theory now is like, oh, maybe Stan Lee is Uatu.
Well,
I think it's funnier if they leave the Watchers alone. And it's just funny, he was an astronaut.
The thing is that there was already a fan theory that Stan Lee was a Watcher.
Oh, really?
And so by
Now it
putting
fits.
this scene in, they're
Kind of
they're
legitimizes
winking and sort of
And it's weird
confirming it.
because he's like, and then before I was rudely interrupted, I was a FedEx man. He's talking about his cameos.
Yeah.
He was a FedEx man in Civil War, but this movie takes place only a couple months after the first one in 2014.
Yeah, so technically this took
So,
place before Civil War, so continuity, whatever.
I don't really care because it's a Stan Lee cameo. And as much as they take me out of the movie normally, this one was like a gut punch of funny. Because it was like nerd reflexes went off. Because Watchers! There haven't been Watchers before, guys! There's Watchers! And it was Stan Lee talking to the Watchers. More Marvel
yeah.
Easter eggs. There's on Screen Rant. There's 30 of them, and some of them are just hey, this is continued from the last one. I caught a few, but Steven, do you want to?
Speaking of diminishing returns, because I do have to be a wet blanket about something. I think the one thing that is demonstrably not as good in this movie as it was in the first one was the Howard the Duck cameo.
Yeah.
Oh, but I could care less about Howard the Duck. I think it's fine that they put him in again.
I have now read Howard the Duck comics. They're kind of great.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, and so this was kind of disappointing. But I think my favorite sort of Marvel nod was a surprising one, and it was actually one that I didn't catch on my own. I had to go look it up. I had no idea who Sylvester Stallone was.
Yeah.
I had no idea who those characters were that he's meeting up with at the end of the film.
But there's some significance there. And
Yes.
You're like, okay, something's gonna. Yeah.
And I should have known because I used to have Guardians of the Galaxy comics when I was a kid.
Now, are they the original?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is a bit of trivia that a lot of people probably don't know because the Guardians of the Galaxy are a big nobody group, or at
Yeah.
least they were until the movie. Well, arguably before with the comic series
Right.
called Annihilation. The original Guardians of the Galaxy was a super team that existed in the year like 3000, far into the future. They were inspired by the Avengers to become superheroes to protect the world from alien invaders. And so the original Guardians of the Galaxy did not take place like in the same time frame as all of these other characters, but they were kind of inspired by them. And so the characters that we see meet up with Sylvester Stallone at the end are a team of the original Guardians of the Galaxy from the comics. Of whom Yondu was a member.
Yeah.
So Yondu was from this team originally like 3,000 years in the year 3000. And they brought the character of Yondu into the film for reasons that I will never fully understand, but for which I am incredibly grateful, because Yondu is the best part of both of these movies.
Yeah.
And so they decided to have this little Easter egg with Sylvester Stallone playing the original leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, and then Michael Rosenbaum and Miley Cyrus.
Ving Rhames, Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah,
So he's
playing all these other characters.
Starhawk, and his sister is Aletta, Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
Or they might be a couple in this iteration.
That's one of the more confusing character arcs. There's a reason that Guardians series isn't around anymore, and I'm going to put a lot of it on Starhawk, because they were the two of them, they were husband and wife, and then they started sharing a body, and the husband was abusive, and the wife took over the body sometimes, and... What? Yeah. So in the original Guardians of the Galaxy series, they had a computer called Mainframe that was
Miley
actually...
Cyrus.
In the comics, it was the Vision.
Oh.
So a little bit of a wink there, but in the movie, it's a little robot head voiced by Miley Cyrus. Martin X is a character who's like just this crystal alien. He's the one who's played by Michael Rosenbaum.
From Pluto.
Yep. Part of the reason, and I hate to say this, but part of the reason I didn't recognize it is because Charlie 27 in the comics is white. But in the movie, he's played by Ving Rhames. And so he's not white.
I was trying to think of what does Charlie 27 look like?
He looks like a big guy, but he's white.
Does he look like a
He looks like a really big person with a lot of guns and huge shoulders.
Just watch Pulp Fiction.
Honestly, if we were getting a full like Guardians of the Galaxy 3000 series or movie, Ving Rhames would have been perfect casting.
Yeah.
He really would have, because I can't think of anybody else who's that big.
So I just have to, a quick aside. I can't hear the name Ving Rhames anymore and not think of Bob's Burgers episode where Gene talks about the Ving Rhames version of the Bible.
Oh my gosh.
And then Bob goes, I think you mean King James. No, Ving Rhames.
Which episode is that? I missed that
It's one
line.
from this season.
Oh, it's hysterical.
Anyway, guys, Bob's Burgers hijacked so much of our episode last month. Maybe we shouldn't this time.
Whatever. It's wonderful.
So
what other Easter eggs?
One Marvel Easter egg that is kind of in the background, and you have to pay really close attention, but there's a movie theater on Earth that has posters up.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about this.
Yeah.
With
literally blink and you miss it.
With Nathan Fillion as the actor Simon Williams, who is actually
Ultraman.
Wonder Man.
Wonder Man.
Who is not an interesting
don't
character. Wonder Man is kind of terrible.
They make fun of him in Runaways. They're like, yeah, there's no heroes out here on the West Coast. Well, except Wonder Man, but he don't count. they keep like in one issue, they keep saying that over and over.
Well, they're not wrong.
They're not wrong.
The best scene of Wonder Man in any of the comics that I have ever read is a scene from The Incredible Hercules, where he's teaming up with Ares to try to hunt down Hercules, but Ares wants to ditch him so he can go kill Hercules. And so Wonder Man is distracted by a female fan because he's so dreamy, and Wonder Man's like, oh, well, whatever. And so Ares picks up a car and smacks him behind the head with it. And
Isn't he, like,
he's
made out of
no, my comrade has been attacked from behind, but it was totally him. Because
So-
Wonder Man's a jerk and nobody likes him.
Is he purple and made up of energy? Is that his thing?
Oh,
Fly and shoot energy? Or am I mixing that up with
Yes,
somebody
and
else?
I think he's the Vision's brother somehow. And
But he was an Avenger, right?
And he was an Avenger.
Okay.
So some of these movie posters, because
Oh, yeah.
because James Gunn has gone onto Facebook and shown actual close-ups of all the posters now. There's Archon, which is a play on Conan the Barbarian,
Who is a character from the comics.
Yeah.
There is a comic book about Archon.
with a poster that says "Know him, fear him, desire him." Archon. Then there's Toxic Janitor 2, Bad News Jackpot, which is obviously Toxic Avengers.
Oh my gosh.
And then there's the tagline of "One wasn't toxic enough." Then there's a romantic comedy, Oh Rebecca, a new romantic comedy from the makers of Something's in the Air. Then there's Tony Stark, which totally looks like a Steve Jobs
And
biopic.
Fair.
that's the Simon Williams one. Right. that he's
Well,
starring in.
all of these are Simon Williams.
Oh, they're all him? Oh, okay. I
They're-
thought it was
they're
like
all Nathan
a
Fillion.
marquee with a bunch of different movies. Okay.
And then there's Haxon 2, You'll Witch You Never Met Him.
Oh, jeez, that's awful.
But anyway, so yeah, there's that was my favorite thing, because when I saw James Gunn post about it, I'm like, yeah. Because I mean, of course, you gotta love Nathan Fillion. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if you're a geek, then you gotta love him. But just seeing how he's used here, and then knowing that Simon Williams is actually a character in the Marvel universe, just kind of makes me happy.
I noticed. Well, I mean, the last after credits is Adam Warlock. Can you tell us about Adam Warlock? Because
Adam
he's
Warlock-
like perfect creation, meant
Oh
to
my
like
God.
go along with Aisha as like the ultimate ideal.
It's a little more complicated than that from the comics. They are clearly not following the comics.
Because he was supposed to be like an Easter egg and like kind of visible in the back of the collector's collection, but it turns out that wasn't him. It was just a similar cocoon or
Yeah.
something.
So, the reason comic book fans are excited for Warlock showing up is because Warlock is one of the major players in the Infinity Gauntlet series, which is arguably the best, if not one of the best, Marvel comic event comics ever. Truth is, Adam Warlock is a big ball of nothing. He is kind of a nothing character. He's like supposed to be this, perfect man. He's got weird sorts of powers. He was around for a good long while, but as a character, you don't see him very much anymore in the comics because he's boring.
Wasn't he in the Guardians though?
No, he had his own team called the Infinity Watch. After the
Okay.
Infinity Gauntlet storyline, they took the Infinity Stones and split them up between 6 different... How many stones are there? There are 6, I think?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they split them up between 6 different people. So Adam Warlock was one of those characters. Gamora was actually part of this team.
Oh.
And had one of the Infinity Stones, as was Drax.
Huh.
And in the comics, Drax and Gamora are actually father-daughter.
Weird.
Yes. So they've taken a lot of liberties from the source material. One of the Infinity Gems actually wound up going back to Thanos as a member of the Infinity Watch, which feels like a bad idea and probably was.
Horrible idea.
So anyway, I haven't read much of this series. It was recently reprinted, so if you're interested, it's pretty easy to find right now. But again, as a character, Warlock is not terribly exciting. What he represents, though, is one step closer to the Infinity Gauntlet in a way that could potentially be interesting, because
I don't know if
he
they're
does.
gonna have. I don't know if they're gonna have another Guardians movie before or after the first
Infinity War comes out next year, I believe.
Yeah,
so
it'll be
no, they
after.
won't.
It'll be after.
He may not
interesting.
show up.
It may not be in
Infinity.
connection to that at all.
He may not be. We don't know yet.
Because we know the Guardians will be in one or both of those movies.
Yes.
So
I'm
that's fantastic.
incredibly curious to see how this plays
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting.
Yes.
We should probably wrap up. I'm trying to think of. I just wrote down some other just favorite funny moments for each character. Drax. Oh, sorry, I just wrote all of them. Die, spaceship. That was a great one. And telling Mantis that she's ugly.
Mantis, we haven't
talked about Mantis.
We have hardly talked about Mantis.
Let's talk
Well,
about
to be
Mantis.
fair, Mantis is like the least developed character in the whole thing. But I just noticed this last time that I watched it. Mantis holds her arms in front of her as if she were a
The
praying
mantis.
mantis for almost the whole movie, and somehow I never picked up on that.
I think she's great.
I think she's
And-
delightful. She's not
Yeah.
terribly well developed.
No, but it's her first go around. So
But yeah, like she's there enough, and she's just. I love her delivery of.
She's just
these
pleasant.
Really, yeah, she is just pleasant. She delivers these really awkward lines in a way that is so endearing.
no sexual love for her. Ah, she told your darkest secret to everyone. Do me.
Your crabby puppy is so cute, he makes me want to die.
Trash panda. It's so much worse.
Yeah, anyway, yeah. So Mantis is great, and she has some really fun lines. So, and she's the one who's going to stick around. Like, she,
Yeah.
I believe, is going to be a member
Because
of the
Nebula
Guardians
is going to
from
be
here on
doing her own thing. Yondu's dead.
out. Nebula is. We talked a little bit about it, but honestly, Nebula might be not the best character, but my favorite character as far as where she winds up as opposed
Yeah.
to where
Where
she
she
started.
was. Yeah.
I'm just glad that they gave her more. Because, like,
Mhm.
the first movie I was like, okay, she's interesting. I want to see more of this, and you didn't get very much of her at all.
Mm-mm.
And this,
Well-
you get more depth of why does she hate Gamora so much? Why is she so angry?
I think that, Guardians 1, if I have any complaints, it's that a couple of the characters didn't really seem to make sense.
Ronan.
And
Yeah.
Nebula was one of them.
Glenn Close.
Nebula and Yondu, and I think that this movie makes both of those make more sense
Mhm.
in the first movie.
Yes,
Absolutely.
much better.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Nebula being played by Karen Gillan doesn't hurt, but it made me really sad that she didn't get more to do in the first movie.
Yep.
One of the big complaints that I've heard about the first movie is that, and this is kind of a ridiculous complaint because this doesn't really mean much, but the first movie does not pass the Bechdel test. Thanks to Nebula and Gamora, the second movie does.
Wait, it passes because they're fighting, but they're fighting each other in the first one,
The subtext is all about Thanos, though.
but not in a romantic way. Isn't the
No, it
Bechdel
doesn't.
test?
It does not have to be about
Oh.
romance.
Just including him in.
Right, and so the second movie passes the Bechdel test, and again, it's setting a really low bar, but just the fact that allows both of these characters who were so underserved in the first movie to have some development really helps.
Trying to think what else we have here. Yeah, Baby Groot was fantastic.
Yeah,
throughout.
there's not much more that needs to be said.
Yeah.
He was great. Like just the right amount of him in the movie. Any more and it could have been overbearing, but any less and we would have felt robbed.
What did you guys think of the Sovereign?
Interesting.
They're fine.
Yeah.
They served a plot purpose and they were kind of tied into things, but no more than they needed to be.
I have to say, I actually loved the whole arcade.
Yes.
Yeah.
The whole arcade moment.
Yes.
Especially
This was great.
Especially when there was only the one
ship
guy
left, and they're all crowded around him, and then they're like, "You suck."
That is totally gamers.
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
Oh, this is weird. We got a sovereign fleet approaching from the rear. Why would they do that? Probably because Rocket stole some of their batteries. Dude! Oh, right. He didn't steal some of those. I don't know why they're after us. What a mystery this is. It killed me. And yeah, and like the longer Aisha was on screen, the more you're like, oh, she's not just prim and proper. Like, oh, she's pissed.
Uh-huh.
And her talking to Taserface. Taserface. What was your first choice? Scrotum face?
Oh,
It's
jeez.
hysterical.
Yeah, so you're right. We're getting to the point where we need to wrap up, but I'm gonna say, because I know this is one of the questions that you wanted to ask, and I'm just gonna say it. Where does this movie fit into the pantheon
Thank
of
you.
Marvel
Yeah.
films? Which Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is not only my favorite Marvel movie, it might be my favorite comic book movie. Which, like, it might be one of my favorite movies now. And it's not because it's so deep necessarily, because it's really not. Everything that I love about it is fairly surface. It doesn't take that much reading into it to get to. It's just so well done, and I feel like it's going to be more rewarding to repeated watchings than any other Marvel movie, with the possible exception of Winter Soldier. Because I just don't know. The Marvel movies, as fun as they've been, aren't that rewarding on multiple watchings. They're just good, fun action movies, and they're good. Fun action movies. Like, they're, for the most part, well done.
Yeah.
Thor: The Dark World aside.
Come on, man. He
But-
fights a rock monster. Isn't that cool enough for you?
No!
monster.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is just, I don't know. Something about it spoke to me really strongly. Something about it. I've talked about what it is.
Yeah.
It's my favorite Marvel movie. Hands down. It's not even close.
I'm glad you brought up Winter Soldier, because that's Guardians 2 or Winter Soldier is my top, and it's tough. The inches, it's so close because they do different things in different ways. Guardians 2 is just so much fun.
Yes.
And with still there's some depth there, but it's so much fun. And like Winter Soldier, after the Avengers, you're like, Cap's not really like, look at what all the other Avengers can do, and then Winter Soldier does a great job of showing like how great of a hero Cap is in comparison to like a normal, like Crossbones, like a hit team guy, who's like a James Bond type guy, like can do all this stuff, but is still only human. And then you see, Cap is a superhuman character and just cool spy, like espionage. I'm always going to love something like that. So Winter Soldier, close second, but Guardians is just, so great and so like different from, what you usually see. And so it's refreshing and wonderful. And Brady, you kind of like, you haven't been as negative as I thought you'd been, because the look on your face is like, I'm going to crap on your loves.
So here's the thing. It's maybe my number 4 in the MCU.
Okay, top 3
are Guardians 1 is number 1.
Okay.
And that's one I have watched. You keep on talking about how it's not rewatchable. It's totally rewatchable.
I disagree,
and
but that's okay.
I've watched it at least 30 times.
Come and get your love.
But I feel like that has better pacing than Guardians 2 for one thing. And like I said, just Drax kind of ruined a lot of Guardians 2 for me.
But we already talked about why you're wrong about that.
But then again, like I said, I'm going to go and see this again tonight, and on repeated viewings, my rankings might change. But so Guardians 1 is my number 1, and then the first Avengers.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, that movie was just something else, especially, considering its time and what it meant for me at that time. It just kind of blew everything away.
Absolutely.
And then Winter Soldier, and then I would put Guardians 2.
All right, well, at least you don't have crappy choices as your first ones, so that's good. If you're like, I like the Hulk movie the best with Edward Norton. It wasn't a bad movie, but with comparing it to what came after.
Yeah.
Thor 2? Thor 2. Yeah.
And Thor Ragnarok might crack that too.
Because of the director.
Because of the director, Taika Waititi. I just have.
Oh my gosh.
I am more
favorite.
nervous about Thor Thor Ragnarok than I've been for any Marvel movie, because I don't see it working. Because I know
it's too much.
They're trying to do too much, and they're storylines that have nothing in common. They're talking about Thor going into hell, and they're doing Planet Hulk, and like there's a screenshot in the trailer. I'm not going to talk about it very much, but it comes from literally one of the best scenes in comics. And it involves a character that has never appeared in the movies. And if they're planning on using the scene in Thor Ragnarok and expecting it to have anywhere near the emotional level it's supposed to have, they've got their work cut out for them, and I'm not confident that they can do it on top of everything
from
else.
Planet Hulk?
I'm not going to say.
Okay, well, I'll ask you after we're done.
In your respect, out of respect for you not wanting to be spoiled on movies before going to see them.
But I've read Planet Hulk.
I'm not going to say.
Okay, fine.
Is it emo Hela?
I'm not going to say.
Okay.
She looks great. By the way, Hela looks great. Like, it's the look of the movie makes me more excited about it. It's knowing what they're trying to do with the plot that makes me nervous.
Okay. Maybe they'll take from both and make a third thing that is its own and still good. The director is fantastic. Go watch Hunt for the Wilder People. Go watch What We Do in the Shadows.
Wilder People, What We Do in the Shadows.
Boy,
Boy,
I haven't seen
Boy is so good.
Okay.
Boy is a lot more of. It's a lot more dramatic and emotional. It's basically about a Maori boy, and his ne'er-do-well father, who's been in prison all these years and then comes back into his life, and it's a coming of age movie, and his father is actually played by Taika Waititi, who does great. If you've seen What We Do in the Shadows, he's the main, he's like the foppish vampire that's
kind of narrates the whole thing.
To be a better character in a movie like that than Jermaine Clement.
Oh my gosh,
means that you have to be pretty amazing.
His discussion why they use virgin blood. Oh my gosh. We're werewolves, not swearwolves. I love that. Anyway, anything else to add? Because we've got to wrap this up. I loved it, and I can't wait to see it again. And
Yeah.
just the scene with Rocket telling Groot what buttons not to push on that bomb. Oh,
Well, that one was in the trailer, though.
I know, but
yeah.
I hadn't seen the so it was new and hysterical to me.
I am Groot.
I'm Groot, and his voice is so cute. And fun.
His voice is so cute. Yeah, no, it's a wonderful movie.
Well, and then angsty teenager Groot.
Well, the rumor is that like in the next time we see Groot, a couple of years has passed, so he's going to be even bigger than in the first Guardians. Like he's going to be a big old, huge Groot. I'm okay with whatever Groot they want to show us. So, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be good.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm excited to see where the franchise goes in the future.
it's excuse me. I talk amongst yourselves for a second.
Well, I think we've said everything that we came here to say. We are very excited about this film, and Brady being wrong about it aside, it's great.
Well,
Guys, I love the movie. I do.
Well, in these times of hardship, just remember we are Groot.
Oh, amen. Thank you, Hess.
That's
Thank
all.
you, Hess. Oh.
Woo!